Raposo. Thank you for joining us today. Can you start by telling us a bit about your background and expertise?
I'm a professor here at the University of Aveiro at the Department of Communication and Arts, and I basically teach and do research in the field of digital media and the use of communication technologies.
How did you become interested in integrating AI into your profession?
So I've always been a science fiction geek. So of course, when you started talking about artificial intelligence, this is something that's been used for a long time in multiple books and stories and films. Of course, I got interested in understanding a little bit more, okay, what's this all about, and how eventually is it going to make its way into whatever I teach and whatever I do on a day-to-day basis.
Which specific teaching-related tasks do you use AI for?
So in the classes that I teach, which are basically in the field of digital video, post-production, special effects, the idea of using artificial intelligence, well, specifically generative artificial intelligence, was to understand how it could be used as a tool for producing content and trying to understand the role that it might have, not only the present, but mainly in the future of their professional lives, how it's going to be used as either a tool or something that will basically take away some of the work that they do.
What motivated you to choose these particular tools or approaches?
So if artificial intelligence is being discussed at a broad level and at a global level, I think that it's only natural that it makes its way into the curriculum, into whatever they're doing and discussing in classes. So as I'm working specifically in the field of digital video and in media production, the idea of including generative artificial intelligence and explaining to students, okay, what's the pinpoint at this moment of creating images, creating audios, creating videos. I think it's something really relevant, and I ended up identifying a set of tools that they could explore and gradually understand if it made sense or not to include those tools into their production workflow.
What motivated you to start integrating AI into your teaching practices?
I think that it's only natural that if something is generating a big buzz in terms of production of digital media, it of course should find its way into classes, into the curriculum. So what I decided to do was to try to identify things that could be used in class that would be interesting. And what really motivated me and motivates me is the fact that every day something new is happening, a new solution, a new product, a new application is coming out. And besides that, the sense of wonder that I still find in students and I see in their reactions when they produce something very quickly and understand, okay, not only the potential but also the still existing flaws, is something that really motivates me to bring it into class and to explore a little bit more, okay, what are the limits and where can we go with this sort of technology.
Was there a particular problem or opportunity you were looking to address?
Of course, we're still in a stage where a lot of the models being used are not perfect, so you still get the casual people with 6 fingers and with double noses and with their face all messed up. But it is nice to see that every time you try to use the application, gradual things start getting better and better, and you start creating products or results with some consistency, and you start to understand, okay, if this is this good at this moment, I try to imagine what's going to be like in about 2 months, 1 year's time.
What were some of the main challenges you encountered while integrating AI into your teaching?
Being able to use application and preparing classes, and all of a sudden the application doesn't work anymore, or it used to be free, now you have to pay for credits. It is a challenge, but at the same time it's motivating, because it motivates you to constantly be updated to what's going on, and using probably the time that you had to procrastinate on social media is used to explore new solutions and keep up to date whatever is happening.
How did you address these challenges?
Probably the easiest way to address this challenge is to understand that this sort of technology is always evolving. And of course, listening to students, listening to suggestions that they might bring to class, and stuff that they share on, for instance, on our Teams channel is something very relevant, because of course, it's completely impossible to be aware of everything that's happening.
Can you share any specific strategies or solutions that were particularly effective? Please elaborate that strategy in detail.
Okay, so one of the things that I use in class is basically taking a challenge that I have, okay, the result that I want to achieve, and trying to understand, okay, so this is my pipeline, this is my workflow. Where can artificial intelligence or generative artificial intelligence be placed or used in a specific task within it? And how does that shift or not what I used to do? And does it affect me in a positive way, in a negative way? Will it make me rethink what I'm teaching students at this moment?
What benefits have you observed since integrating AI into your courses?
In any project that we have in production of audiovisual content, there's always this brainstorming stage in which students start discussing ideas about the storyline, start discussing ideas about how they imagine the characters, the sceneries. And in this specific task, for instance, of brainstorming about the idea, I don't ask students to use ChatGPT or another chatbot to discuss ideas and to come up with the ideas. But when they're discussing, for instance, what a main character looks like, if I have 3 students around a table and each one of them is imagining the female character, and one says, okay, she has brown hair and dark glasses, and she's tall and she has straight blonde hair. If we have 3 people around the table, those 3 students are thinking about completely different characters. So using these sort of solutions in terms of being very agile in creating an imagery of what they're thinking about and showing their colleagues and discussing and fine-tuning it, I think is very positive.
How has it impacted the quality of teaching, student learning, and engagement?
I like to understand or try to understand this phenomena as something that gradually we're making like these small steps and small changes in terms of how I'm teaching and in terms of what students are learning and applying in their tasks and in their activities. And I think that, as in the case of many technologies, only when we have probably a time span of 2, 3, 4 years can we look back and see the real impact that the sort of technologies have.
How have students and your fellow faculty members received the integration of AI in your teaching?
You have multiple perspectives about the application, the use or not of this sort of technologies. But that, yet again, is something very normal in the field of digital media. So you will always have people that get immediately on board, are very motivated to explore, to use, and are very positive about the results. Then you have, on the other side or the other extreme of the spectrum, you have people that say, no, this is not positive, we should not use it, we should not allow it. And then you have the people in between who says, okay, let's see where this goes, let's see what it's useful for, let's see what it's not useful for.
Have there been any notable reactions or feedback?
Yeah, I've had students that have taken whatever we learned in this class and reapplied it in other subjects, in other contexts. And for me, that's really valuable and that's really rewarding, because you see that instead of just saying, okay, I can do this to get this result, the students start saying, okay, if I use this in this context, probably I can rethink it and reuse it and re-engineer my line of thought and apply it in another field, in another context.
What ethical challenges do you foresee with the increasing use of AI in education?
One thing is to learn how to use a tool, another thing is to learn and to be able to discuss why do we use that tool and when do we use that tool and should we use that tool or not. So this sort of, as I already mentioned, this critical thinking around the subject of artificial intelligence and the use of artificial intelligence is something that gradually, of course, has to get into education.
How can you balance the benefits of AI with potential risks, such as plagiarism, biases, and/or misinformation?
It starts with creating our own ethical boundaries and our moral compass when using this sort of technologies. The problem is, in my opinion, is that the majority of people, as it's so easy to access, as it's so easy to use, I can sit at home with my laptop or even with my smartphone and very easily create a deep fake video or generate an audio in which I'm reproducing the voice of somebody. And if I don't have this inner voice, if you can call it, that says, okay, I should not do this, this is not right. As it's so easy, you have many cases in which people very easily produce this sort of content and disseminate it online, on social media. And being I think that the main focus in this specific area should be We cannot start discussing this at a higher education level. We have to start discussing this at a first grade level, even at a kindergarten level.
Looking ahead, what future developments or trends do you foresee in the integration of AI in social sciences education?
You have multiple tools that can be used nowadays in terms of artificial intelligence and generative artificial intelligence for educational purpose. So things like helping produce content for classes, helping students discuss, not write reports, but rather discuss ideas, as if a chatbot was somebody that they were trying to propose an idea and argument and try to deconstruct ideas, okay, as a counterpoint. Being able to use artificial intelligence in classes as a mean, for instance, of taking big bulks of data and trying to understand and produce some sort of knowledge from that data. But it is always relevant to understand that there are flaws in the use of this in this technology. There is information that's provided that's not correct. There are multiple cases of hallucinations in which a chatbot can give you very wrong information, and that's what they're providing. In many cases, the tools that you have nowadays are providing information and not knowledge. So in any sort of information, what you have to do is you read it, understand it, and criticize and see if it's real or not. Find other sources, triangulate those sources to form an idea and to form a position, an opinion about a subject or about any information that's provided. And only then can you go on to the knowledge level.
How do you plan to further enhance your use of AI in your teaching?
Probably propose a couple of new subjects. One specifically about digital ethics and the ethics related with artificial intelligence. Because I think it's, besides being relevant, it's something that I think lacks in terms of content and subjects at a higher education level.
What advice would you give to other educators who are considering integrating AI into their teaching practices?
Talk with your colleagues, look at examples, talk with students, trying to understand, okay, there's a lot going on. There's like this enormous wave that's basically impossible to stop at this moment. If there are any seminars open at your university or at your local higher education institution, please take part in them, listen to other people, talk, ask questions. Don't be afraid to show that you don't know anything about the subject, that you're still learning about it.
Are there any key lessons or best practices you would recommend?
So there are, of course, suggestions about strategies that you can use, guidelines of stuff that you can either adopt in your class or applications that you can use. But pinpointing and writing in stone that they're best practices is, I think, a very dangerous approach, because whatever is useful today, tomorrow might not make any sense. What I would recommend, and going back to a previous answer that I gave, is talk with people, trying to understand what's happening at your university.
Is there anything else you would like to share about your experience with AI in education?
So I had this student that decided that he wanted to do a short video. He wanted to have a voice off for the video, but he wanted to use a comedian's voice. So the student ended up learning how to train models. He collected a lot of audio files from that specific comedian, and he trained the model. And of course, the student ended up using it in his project and learned a lot of stuff with that, and then ended up sharing with other colleagues how he achieved that.
Any final thoughts or insights?
Don't make long-term plans. Technology is unpredictable. This essence of being unpredictable, which is typical of technology, is something that probably will not enable us to make, like, as I mentioned, long-term plans, but keeping an open mind and exploring the potential and say, okay, what if I try this? What if I try to develop a solution with this technology for this purpose?